I pinpointed a water source here in the Chihuahuan Desert using free satellite data. And with my hard-won lessons in hydrology, geology, and heavy equipment, I've got a few hundred labor hours to build this pond before the storms arrive. Out here, water is everything. In a typical rain event, this wash can carry up to 52 million gallons of water. That is plenty to transform this desert. But turning that into a permanent pond, that is a high-stakes play. And I risk going against nature, time, and my own budget. I've spent years battling all sorts of hardships to turn this into a desert forest. And every lesson has led to this moment. Let's see if I've got what it takes. The problem is that hauling water out here is a nightmare. This truck half exists just for putting water on the bed. It eats resources and it steals time that I don't have. So every tank we bring out here, we're thankful for, but it's also a reminder that there are better options that suit my time and my budget. And now, armed with the space satellite data, I think I can make a smart decision. Right now, the region between me and Big Bend is in an exceptional drought. The last time it rained more than an inch here was June of 2023. It's now May of 2025, so we're coming up on 2 years. Even without receiving any significant rain on this ranch, last year I had flowing water in this channel. How is that possible? Mountains, and specifically the region between that part right there and that part right there, all drains right here. This wash was the reason that I bought the property. It's even documented in the first episode before I did a thing here. And even though I knew this wash should flood every single year, I didn't have any data or experience to back that up. It was just something I believed was true. And that's because I did not know about the Copernicus space satellite. The European Space Agency gives away all of this data completely for free. They've got satellites orbiting the globe, and every 3 or 4 days, they take images of every single spot on Earth. And one of the key things that they measure is the level of moisture in the ground. Now, of course, my natural inclination is to monitor the moisture level on my terraces. Right now, they are this yellow color. But compared to the rest of the watershed, which is dark orange, it's considerably better. And often, as I go back in time, I'll be able to find images where there's some greenery. Like here. So on April 29th, you can see that the work I've done, either on the terraces, the dams, or the roads, they do show up green from time to time. It just depends on how much we're irrigating, humidity levels, a bunch of things. The color changes on this image aren't exactly earth-shattering, but it is progress. And this is what almost made me fall out of my chair, was seeing the vast moisture levels flowing through my central wash. Even though I wasn't here, the satellites were recording the data, and I could get a pretty good idea for just how much water passed through my property. Y'all see how dry it is out here right now. It is bone dry. I had to make a lot of assumptions because this is not a scientific study and I am not an engineer. But I wanted to get a sense for how much water is likely going through the wash, and of course I wanted to know if it's manageable or not. The rule of thumb for estimating flows is just to look at the size of the gravel in the water channel, and where I'm working, it's pea gravel. So yes, there are flows, and it could be dangerous if you were stuck in it because of the depth, but just looking at the size of the rocks, it looks like the flow itself is manageable and not violent. But I wanted to do something a little more precise, and so I used tools from the U.S. Geological Survey. I was able to look up some data and find that the catchment area for my central wash is roughly 10 square kilometers, which is roughly 5 square miles. And then I don't even know which entity offers this tool, but a hydrologist from NRCS recommended it to me. It's RHEM, the Rangeland Hydrology and Erosion Model Web Tool. The next major question is figuring out how much water is going to flow through this channel if we get a meaningful rain event, which I would say is about 1.5 inches. It's like a little on the optimistic side. But it's not extremely optimistic because in a severe rain event, we can get up to 3 inches an hour. I had to make a ton of assumptions based on my knowledge of my property, but at least it gave me some kind of plausible number to work from. I'm not trying to find the specific answer. I'm just trying to get a sense of scale. It's kind of like asking how long something will take. You may not know that it's going to take 60 hours or 250 hours, but it's a lot like a software project. I'm not trying to answer the specific number of hours. I'm trying to answer the scale. Are we talking days, weeks, or months? And the answer right now is I don't know, because I need to do some surveying. I've done so much work on Google Earth and using my drone maps and just staring at it, probably 10 times longer than I've needed to. And now that I'm physically here, the one thing that is not incorporated on the electronic data is the soil content. I like walking here, I have banks and banks of clay everywhere. It's already stacked up for me and makes beautiful walls that can be used to hold water. I wouldn't know that sitting on the computer. When I do the analysis and I look at the scale of the water flowing through here, it's in the hundreds of acre feet. For those of you not familiar with that measurement, 1 acre foot is enough to bury 1 acre of water 1 foot deep. If you're used to the metric scale, that is 1 hectare buried in 12 centimeters of water. Now multiply that by at least 100. And now you're starting to get a sense of just how much water that is. I'm certainly not the first person to think about trapping water in a wash like this. There are several spots all across Red Light Draw where ranchers have built stock tanks, which are designed for livestock. 2 years ago, I was given permission by IMRS, whose land is about 50 feet that way, that's the border, to walk over to their stock tank. It's a quarter mile from the edge of my property. I went over there to look at how the landscape reacted to having a large source of water consistently filling up. Because they're designed for livestock, the design on them is quite a bit different. So they're not meant to be deep. They want cattle to be able to walk in, get a nice drink of water without risking drowning. They're trying to capture a lot of water, but to make it as accessible as possible to livestock without risking the lives or the health of the livestock. Now, because it's shallow and you've got to use clay to seal everything, it makes it nice and wide. It's like a very smooth bowl. And what happens is you see this desert of vegetation, and then around the edge where it's not sealed, trees everywhere. Like any system, there's design choices. And when you make a stock tank and it holds 3 million gallons of water and it's only 3 feet deep, out here in the summer when we usually get rain, that water is gone, best case scenario, in 4 months. And no, it's not because the cattle drink it all. The wind and the sun steals the water. So you can have a tank full of 3 million gallons of water, or 13 million liters, and it's gone in 4 months without even pumping it or using it. It just evaporates. I want permanent water for my desert forest. The only way to deal with that, especially in the beginning, is depth. We lose 7 or 8 feet per year to evaporation. So if you want permanent water, it means it needs to be at least 7 feet deep to keep it around. Yesterday, when I had the idea from digging the check dams and just seeing how much clay was under the blade, I was thinking about the way I would have done this in the beginning, where the ideal tool would be a 10-ton excavator, and like you see on a lot of YouTube channels, somebody just buys this $250,000 piece of equipment like it's no big deal and starts using it. I'm doing this on my own budget, and a lot of the YouTube revenue funds this, but I'm not at the scale where I have millions of viewers. My baby dozer's got to be the tool I use. It will absolutely take longer, but that's the tool I have, and that's the equipment that I can support during a breakdown. Out here, I'm doing everything I can to protect the land, but what about protecting me? I recently looked myself up online, and I was shocked how much information was out there, even as somebody that's in public. Old addresses, phone numbers, even data about my family, all posted by people search sites that I'd never heard of. That's where Incogni comes in. It's a privacy tool that contacts data brokers online and has all those listings removed on your behalf, automatically. Incogni reached out to me just as I was starting to search for how to get all of this information removed. Within days, I was getting notifications of successful listing after successful listing being removed. These brokers collect your data and sell it, leading to robocalls, junk mail, and even identity theft. You don't have to sit back and take it. I spent a lot of time online uploading videos, research, getting everything ready for the ranch. I don't want to worry about every click I make leading to more data on me. Incogni puts the control back in my hands. Right now you can get 60% off the annual plan when you go to incogni.com/DUSTUPS. Sign up, give Incogni permission to remove all your listings, and then you do nothing. It all happens automatically. You're just going to see the successful removals come in one after the other. It's easy, affordable, and it feels really good being off the map. When I first got that bulldozer, it broke down constantly. I'm talking every 20 hours of work. We would blow a hydraulic hose, blow a cylinder seal. It was not reliable. We spent the first 8 weeks of this year doing work that I wasn't even able to put on the channel, which was we built roads, a lot of roads. Getting to my ranch from the county road is 5.5 miles of private road, meaning I honestly don't think it had been maintained since it was cut in 1948. I can see my ranch on historicaerials.com, and I can see the road. It's the exact same shape. I literally think it was ignored for 60 years. It needed so much work. But when I bought a box blade and we put it behind the dozer, it sped up the work so much that we could realistically get all that work done. And oh, by the way, we'd fixed all the hydraulic problems. And now, after we've put 100 hours of consistent work on the dozer, it seems like it's a steady workhorse and it's ready for a big project. Water is my biggest priority, and I have the resources and the equipment to pull it off. Water itself is a good thing, but like anything in the world, you want a certain amount of it. Right now we suffer from too little, and if I was standing in this wash during a flood, I'd be dead. Meaningful quantities of water out here only come in raging torrents. Building a dam is a very high-risk undertaking because if it fails and it's holding literally millions and millions of gallons of water, if you unleash that all at the same time, it's devastating. But I do have the experience of building 2 dams. Admittedly, they have not been tested with water yet because of the lack of rain, but that's the essence of being out here. You prepare, you prepare, you prepare, you prepare, and then one day, eventually, good things will happen, but you gotta wait. The experience of building this dam was really important though, because I got the process of being criticized by viewers, positive criticism about things that we overlooked, like most importantly, the width and the angle. The most important thing I learned was how essential it is that the base be 3 times the height. In this case, it's 7 or 8 times the height. It's massive overkill, because the last thing I want to do is fail or have a dam failure. That's a serious outcome. So that's the value of experience. But if you're one of those viewers wondering why I haven't got around to digging a pond yet, well, the answer is experience and budget. This is a dam, but it won't be a pond because there's no clay. But over there, where I'm gonna work, there's clay. So I don't have to pay for it or haul it. If this is the top of the dam, this is a sidewall, this is a giant mound of clay that's naturally here. If I'm able to use this, I don't know how much higher I am than you are right now, but I suspect it's close to 14 feet. And especially if I start taking material from uphill and moving it downhill, i.e. over time, making this section deeper, my idea only requires 3 walls. One of them's natural, all clay, and it's already built. If you're not blessed with a large pocket of clay deposits, the way you build it is you gotta bring dump trucks full of clay, spread it everywhere. It needs to be at least 4 inches thick. That requires paying the bulldozer operator, the dump truck driver, and you gotta pay the company to dig the clay out and put it in your dump truck in the first place. Or if you're lucky enough to have clay in a spot where you already have water, that's very budget friendly. So now I understand the opportunity. I know I want it as deep as possible. I need to do this with 1 employee, 1 bulldozer, and get it done before the monsoon rains arrive. Peak season is July. They could come as early as a few weeks. It wasn't just the water channel that inspired this idea in the first place. It was looking at clay, clay, clay everywhere. These walls already exist. I really ought to use them. I want to use my laser grading equipment to make a smarter decision. So it's that hill right there. That hill is a deposit of clay. And the reason is, I know that is geology and running the dozer. So when I look at this little path I cut just so I could drive the dozer, this has a lot of silt, but this part right here, this is clay. And as we get over to that hill, the reason it exists is because clay is denser than the sand. And so when water comes through here and washes it all away, the clay is way more resistant to erosion than the sand. And you're left with these hills, which is amazing because clay is what I need to make it watertight. I already have the elevation. Now I want to go mark the top of that hill so I can figure out if that hill's in the right spot, because my property line is just a couple of feet past that access ramp right there. And what I don't want to do is backflood over the property line. I need to make sure that whatever wall I build that way, that the water can go around the structure that I'm building and not over it and destroy it. Okay, right now you are looking at that hill. I am going to get the tripod and the laser and set it up pretty close to the top of the hill. It doesn't have to be here, but I also don't want to worry about distance. This laser has a max range of 500 feet before it is out of tolerance. But I think this is the realistic point where I'm able to back flood right to the property line without flooding out my neighbors. I've got a free hand. Why don't y'all come with me? No, I didn't have a free hand. I need the grading stake in order to mark where I'm working. This spot right here will do. Let's get this guy set up. I will not make y'all listen to that. I don't want to hear it either. Okay. This is where the grading stake goes. There we go. Let's go for a walk so you can get a sense for the scale. I want water no closer than 3 feet to the lip. So for me to mark the actual spot where I think I have the room to design the back flooding system and stay in the channel, I'm clearly losing more than 3 feet by the time I get over here. So let's go back over there and do that. I have level marked here where it beeps. 3 feet is exactly here. Every foot I give up off of this wall probably saves hundreds, if not thousands, of cubic yards of material. I need to lose 6 feet between here and there to not bite off more than I can chew. I really want to use all of this, but I also want to make a realistic goal. So I'm going to use what I learned on this walk to reset the stake. Up here, I barely need to move any material for the actual water level. So that means that this area should already be within a couple inches of being watertight. I'm gonna make absolutely sure that I build this wall as thick as I realistically can. That means the minimum standard is a 3-to-1 ratio of height to width. And it also means that if we can do more and make it closer to 4-to-1, since we're not dam experts, I want to aim way higher than we need because I'd rather do too much than too little. Too little is too risky for everything downstream of me, so I want to make sure I succeed. Let's get that laser turned off. And you know, the walls are huge and I was super intimidated standing up on top there, but now that I see the water line, it feels more manageable in terms of the total material. It feels like an appropriate sized project for that dozer, whereas before it felt optimistic. Now that I know I'm happy with my placement, I'm gonna go get more stakes. I don't have to worry about the natural contours. I want to build the shortest wall possible, and the easiest way to do that is A to B. So we're going to start with the dozer and just start pushing. And I'm not actually going to build the dam. I'm just going to mark the path for Brandon so he knows what to build. I just have to come back with one more stake to get the height correct, the wall height. And that's how we're going to get our depth, by building the walls up nice and high. Feels right. I want to be more confident, but now I think I just need to do it. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm sitting in my cabin second guessing myself, and I'm really excited that I have the link for the drone map. I didn't save the GPS point of where I measured my water line, but just ballparking it here, it matches what I did in the field. Now I'm just making sure that the water channel that I'm going to be able to dig, because this whole area is really flat, I should be able to comfortably make the water channel around the dam wall, basically the spillway, big enough to handle the flow, but it's going to be really important that I make it way bigger than I think it needs to be. I've done an hour of work and I can tell that I'm losing the reference a little bit. So I'm gonna do something that's really hard for a new operator. I'm gonna stop working, take some time to go get some stakes to make sure I don't waste time moving material I don't need to move. Not exactly sure how many hours I've been working on the dozer. Long enough. I'm worried about the fuel, and I don't have, the fuel gauge isn't working. So if you run out of fuel with a diesel, it's not the end of the world, but it's a big pain. You got to bleed the fuel lines, and it's maintenance that's not required, so let's avoid it. But I'm gonna walk up here and just see how I'm doing. I definitely have parts of the wall that are above this 3-foot level. And at least here, it looks like it's wide enough I could probably smooth it out with the dozer. For a 3-foot wall, this certainly looks okay. It's about 15 feet wide. Might have to knock it down a little bit, but we'll see. That was a lot of material. Holy cow. I know most of you are not huge heavy equipment fans, or it's just not an interest area, but I want to show you the problem very briefly so you understand what it's like being out here. Okay, that's what a track should look like. You should see a sag in the middle. The distance between here and here should have a 2-inch drop here. This is what it's supposed to be. Over on this side, it's incredibly tight. The pads don't even move. That's bad. I thought Brandon just massively over-greased the track, and I went and he removed the Zerk and tried to get the grease out, and it's still not coming out. I'm not worried about us fixing it, but it's a showstopper. I cannot drive with the track that tight because my sprocket only has about 15% of wear life left, and I don't need to accelerate that. That's a great way to destroy an undercarriage. So I'm paused. I really wanted to make a lot more progress on the pond, but there is a silver lining here that I want to show you. So here's the pond as I left it. You can see the upper part where I was pulling material, and then I was pushing downhill and making that big wall there. And then that's where I thought I was out of fuel, and we went for maintenance. And I just drove the dozer, parked it where you saw it, got refueled, and then Brandon had the discovery with the track that it wasn't loosening up. In fact, it's actually getting worse after he tried driving it a little bit, and that was under my encouragement. So that's that, but it did give me time to reflect on things. Again, for context, here's the dam, and then as I look north and to the left, you see the channel. It has not sat well with me at all, the idea of trying to permanently block this channel. As I reviewed satellite data and the drone maps, I realized there's not a big enough channel to divert the water into. So instead, we can build a dam like the Dozer check dam in that it's perfectly okay for it to fail. Because you can see the size of this gravel. This is the largest rock in the wash. None of these are huge. It's meaningful water flow, but it's not gigantic. And most of the pea gravel, this is what most of it looks like. Okay, it's not big stuff. So the idea, and I'll have to, again, use the laser grader, is that we can push material up and we actually can design a dam that will fail if the current's too strong. And if that happens, there's not a catastrophic quantity of water that's been backed up and released. And if we have a dam wall somewhere like here, and we can literally raise the water level from the gravel to the top of that bank, we can design a channel that flows into this first little pond. So we'll have to cut some of this away, but we flow water over here and it flows into the pond, which means that we can put a wall over there, and we build up a wall here, and we just do everything possible to make sure that running water never flows that way. It only flows this way into the pond. And then what should happen is we move probably 10 times more dirt than you see in front of you. That wall with me here at the bottom, I'm 5'10". It's easily 10 foot above me. I mean, from my feet. So, but as we look back this way, the pond will slope back up. So as water starts to fill, it'll come up here, up here, up here. And what I noticed on the contour maps, specifically from the drone maps, was that this flows into a bigger watershed and is a much cooler opportunity because it can flow on a contour or a swale similar to the path that I'm walking, and it'll have to be a little meandering and very, very carefully measured to hold its elevation. But as we're flowing over here and then we start flowing back this way on contour, look how deep this drops all by itself. Now I'm gonna have to get on the contour map to design exactly where this goes. But look, I mean, it just needs a little wall depending on where we dump the water in. There's not a whole lot of earth here to move, and it's quite a bit deeper. And then depending on opportunity, look at the size of those walls. That's all clay. That's a huge deposit. So getting something that's gonna be eventually deeper than 8 feet looks very possible, but I feel way better about this plan because just walking the site, it looks likely like I can make a safe dam that's designed to fail, to lift the water level into my first pond that I've already started, and then using my laser to build swales to divert any excess over to a much, much larger pond. And the way to control catastrophic risk is in the wash itself. So it's like an intake to a system. You can't bring in more air than the intake can handle. Well, it's the same with the idea of building a dam there, is that this little dam, the dam that leads into that pond, could only be so big. And so if it fails, and you don't have a catastrophic flood. And it's not near raging floodwaters. We can use elevation changes to meander the water, to put it in a place where there actually is clay and we're away from the heaviest flows, where we can manage risk and hopefully get to the depths we need to keep that water ideally permanently, but at least for a very long time, to fight the wind and the sun from evaporating and stealing all the water that I'm gonna fight so hard to keep. I would say leave a comment and let me know what you think of the plan, but I already know you're gonna do that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.